As this channel has grown, and we are nearly at 100,000 subscribers, which I still can't get my head around, we have people ask us how we get to events, how we can afford to go to events, how do we decide which events to go to and which ones not to go to, do we get paid to go to events? I figured it was sensible, as it's Labor Day, to give you a little bit of a different video today explaining just how we go about that process. And today is a really good example of that because I've just got an invite for an event in Detroit, which I really want to go to because it's for a new vehicle that is from a new company. And I think it's a kind of important vehicle. It's very different. There's nothing like it on the market right now. And so I want to go. And so I figured it would be a good chance to talk you through the process of how we decide whether we're going to an event or not. First up, the most important thing is our editorial considerations. Is going to the event worth our time and money? Very often we will be invited to an event by a big car company and they normally cover your flights, your hotel, and your food. Essentially, you get on a plane at your local airport, they meet you at the other end, they take you to a nice hotel, they make sure you have food while you are there. You get to do the event, be it a press event, be it a test drive, be it a multi-day event, which is sometimes does happen. And then they fly you back home and you get to your car and you drive home at the end of it. Those particular events, I don't have to financially pay for because the car company in question pays for it. And when we do those kind of videos, we are under an obligation editorially to state in the video that this car company provided airfare, lodging and meals. That's our standard thing. Such and such a company enabled us to bring you this event by providing airfare, lodging and meals. And in that situation, we are under no obligation to say good things about the company or the car. It's known by the automaker that they are inviting journalists to the event to test drive the car, to try the car out. And if those journalists don't like it, well, too bad. The automaker has to deal with the fact that they're going to get a negative review, even though they were flown in and put up and fed. And that's how the auto industry has operated for a really long time. In the last couple of years, however, there's been a transition away from that. And we've started to see car companies invite what I would deem as non-traditional journalists to come and view cars and review cars. They are often social media influencers. There's that name again. And in that case, there is a little bit more pressure, not necessarily implicit, but kind of a subtle pressure, expectation almost, that because this person is being flown somewhere and put up that they will say nice things. Now we remain very much on the, nope, I'm sorry, you're inviting us, that's great, we'd love to go. You do understand we're going to be impartial, right? And as a consequence, sometimes we don't get invited to events because car companies, I think, are worried that we're going to say something negative about their vehicle and they don't want that to happen. There are a handful of car companies out there who are more than happy to invite us to events, knowing full well that we will be 100% honest about the vehicle. And I have to give kudos to Nissan. I have to give kudos to GM. They are two automakers who fly us to events and know that we may say a nice thing, we may say a not so nice thing, but we will give a balanced review. And I think that's really important to highlight that those companies are really cool with that. Other car companies, especially startups, tend to be a little less, what's the word? A little less okay with that. And so very often we don't get invited to a lot of events because we're not in the influencer crowd, and we're totally okay with that. But when it comes to car shows, when it comes to special launch events that we get wind of, sometimes from smaller companies who can't afford to fly a huge number of journalists out, sometimes we will take a punt and go, you know what, we still want to go, we're going to pay for that, and we will make it happen. A couple of examples of those are CES in Las Vegas every year. We have been going to CES now, I think, for 4 years straight. We love CES. It's a great show. We go because it's a really good place for us to connect with people in the industry and get our name out and about. I hate networking, but it is part of this job. And I'm not big on kind of doing that, but we have to sometimes. Also, it's a great place to talk about new technology and discover things you might not discover at a normal auto show. So that's why we go to CES. And we pay for the entire CES trips ourselves. And for that, we have to pay for our travel to get there. We have to pay for our accommodation. We have to pay for our food. We have to pay salary for people. And sometimes we have to buy in extra people. So we have a couple of freelancers who work for us. Basically, all of our camera guys are freelancers, and they come in and work for us when we need them. And so we have to pay them in addition to paying staff salary. So that's a big example of something like CES, and we plan for that for months and months and months. The LA Auto Show is another one. It's coming up in November, and we're planning on taking, I think, 3 people to that. So we've got to cover travel costs for everybody, salary for everybody, accommodation for everybody, food and stuff like that. We do that completely out of pocket. We have to make a cost value judgment based on how many views are we going to get, what is our CPM going to be. It's an ad term, and it refers to how much money you earn per 1,000 views based on the people that click on your ads or the number of views those ads get. Now, our CPM varies quite a lot. We do have a higher CPM than most YouTubers because we're an automotive brand, and so therefore people who watch our videos are very often people who want to buy cars, and so the companies that bid with YouTube to put ads on our video are often car companies who will spend more money to advertise to our audience. That's you guys. We have no hands-on, by the way, we have no connection hands-on into what Google picks in terms of ads. We can say the ads we don't want. So if there's a particular ad that's either political or doesn't feel that we feel doesn't meet the needs of our channel, we can specifically say this particular ad, don't show this particular ad, but we can't block them, I don't think, from a particular company or whatever. And so we have no choice in the ads that come on. They are picked based on the keywords in our video, our demographic. And that's why very often when we'll make a video on Tesla, you'll see other luxury brand ads in front of that. If we're talking about a luxury brand, you might see an ad for that luxury brand, or you might see another rival, just like you would for a Tesla ad. So from our, sitting down and working out how much it's going to cost in terms of time, how much it's going to cost in terms of money, we then have to make a value judgment based on, okay, do we go, do we stay? Right now, there are 2 people essentially full-time here at Transport Evolved. There's myself, I work 4 to 5 days a week. I tend to work 10 to 12 hours a day. And there's Erin, she comes in 4 days a week and she works 8 hours a day. And between us, we basically have to hold the fort down. Kate Walton-Elliott is a wonderful, wonderful friend, and she helps us out. She doesn't get any money for it. She just does it for the love of the channel and helping out. She has a day job, so she has to have a normal day job. But this is my day job, and it's Erin's day job, so we have to pay our salaries as well. I'm sorry this is really long, but I'm talking through the process so that you guys understand why we go to events, some events and not others. So the next thing we have to do is we have to decide, once we've figured out, is it worth going, is then look into the actual, a little bit more in depth, look into the costs. And this is where I'm at with this flight to Detroit. Because they are still in startup phase, they're not flying journalists in, at least not to my knowledge. And they certainly haven't offered to fly me in, but they have offered me a ticket to their event. And I've checked the calendar, so I can go. It's a date that I have free at the moment. So that's the first hurdle. The second hurdle is, what's the cost of getting there? Now, Transport Evolved tries to drive to as many events as possible. So we will be driving to CES in Las Vegas. We will be driving to Fully Charged Live USA. To do that, we have to spend 2-3 days on the road. It's 2 days to get to Las Vegas. It's probably going to be 3, maybe even 4 to get to Fully Charged Live in the US. Now, from a cost analysis point of view, it's actually cheaper for us to drive because we can take my car, drive straight down the I-5 to Vegas. I can get 3 people in my car, 4 actually maybe, and everybody lives pretty locally. So Kate Walton Elliott is up in, she's like 100 miles north. Erin and myself, obviously, we're in Portland. And one of our camera guys, Brandon, is down in Southern Oregon, so we can pick him up on the way if he does it. Our other cameraman, Brandon, too, he lives in New Mexico, so we do sometimes fly him in for stuff. So from a cost analysis point of view, it's actually being on the road is not too bad. And from a carbon footprint point of view, that's better for everybody. We have just purchased a tow hitch for our Chevrolet Bolt EV that will actually mean that we can get a little tow, a little enclosed trailer to tow that we'll be able to put all our camera gear in, which will give us more space in the car, which means we can do more of those road trips. But for CES and Fully Charged Live, we can drive because they're both multi-day events and it's worth our time and money to do. For events overseas, like Fully Charged UK, we had to fly over there and pay for those flights. I think the flights to Fully Charged in the UK were, I think, about $3,500 all in. And the accommodation was another $1,000. Obviously, then I'm covering food for everybody. So you can see how this quickly adds up. The cost of getting to an event soon adds up, which is why, obviously, when a car company offers to fly you to a place to do an event, you generally go, yeah, that's a really good idea. I'd love to do that. So in addition to that, let's go back to this Detroit thing. We have to cover it out of pocket. And to get to Detroit, I have to look at flights and I have to look at accommodation. Now, I would love to drive to Detroit in the Chevrolet Bolt EV. That would be a low carbon alternative. I'd love to take the train, but both of those are going to take too long. And in the case of the train, it's going to cost more than it would to fly. So what we're going to do at this point is we're looking at flights. And right now, I have a flight that works to Lansing, and I'll come to that in a second, that's going to be like $640. So that flight will get me to Lansing. I've got a wonderful friend in Lansing who's offered to put me up for free and also offered me the use of a vehicle so I can get to the launch event. So thank you. You are an amazing person. I hope that I can give you something for your trouble. And that will dramatically reduce the cost of, us going to this event. It means that covering the whole event will cost us less than $1,000, which is a really good thing. So now we have to look at flights. I'm just about to buy flights later on, and then hopefully we can go to this event in Lansing. But it's only made possible thanks to the kind donations of people like you guys watching through Patreon and Ko-fi. It's also thanks to the YouTube ad revenue that we get and also our swag store merch. Okay, so let's go back and go, okay, so $1,000, less than $1,000, like 640 to fly to Michigan. Great. Then we have to add in the additional cost of me not being in the office, and I have to do extra work to do that content ahead of time. So there's content while I'm away. And that's another big thing that costs time and money. So we have to factor that in as well. I've given you all these figures. Let's now talk about how this all works in the wider context of Transport Evolved. If we were a large media organization, we would have a budget, a line item budget every month that we could just dip into, like $4,000 a month to do events. And that's what a lot of other news outlets do. A lot of the big news channels for EVs, and a lot of the big mainstream outlets will do that as well. They'll just have it and they can write it off. For us, because our income is not super large, and our outgoings are pretty high, we have to be really lean about where we go and what we do, especially as we're in the process of upgrading the studio and we're upgrading all of the equipment that we use so that we can make better quality videos and get them out to you a little bit quicker. In an ideal world, we'd have a video editor back here. We'd have somebody working on networking for us, because I know about networking and computer stuff, but that takes out of time and money as well. And we also have to make sure that everything else stays running and tickety-boo. And so when it comes to doing an event like this, we really do rely on everybody donating and helping out so that we can go and cover the things so that you can see the content. Because without you guys, it really isn't possible. Our monthly income at the moment, we get about a third of our income comes from, actually no, it's probably a little bit more than that. Probably about half of our income comes from YouTube, so YouTube ad revenue. Then we have our Patreon supporters who bring in, let me think, probably about 2/5. 1/5 maybe comes from, and I know these don't add up, so I'm just riffing this off on the top of my head. I'm trying to proportionally do it without giving you actual figures. So our revenue stream is YouTube ads, Patreon, Ko-fi, Swag Shop. We have a client in New Zealand, Ecotricity New Zealand. We make videos for them. Lots of you see these videos and go, oh my God, they're stealing your videos. No, they're made by us for them. If you watch them, they are subtly different. And then we also do sponsored content. So sometimes we do sponsored adverts, like we did for a game recently. Sometimes we've done it for like software services. And they help bring up the coffers. And we also have a couple of people who send us a check once a year. And they want to remain anonymous, but we have a couple of people who send us a check for $500-600 a year. They'll send us that check. And again, thank you. It goes through our accounting system, so it's all above board, but they want to remain anonymous, and that's fair enough. So in all of that, we have to pay Erin, we have to do all of these other things, we have to pay for this place. And that's where we're at. That's why when we go to an event, sometimes we're not at events. Which brings me to Tesla. The final thing, Tesla events. Why do we not go to Tesla events? Well, that's pretty simple. We don't get invites to Tesla events. It's notoriously difficult to get an invite to a Tesla event because Tesla tends to invite people who own Teslas. So if you are a Tesla owner, you are more likely to get an event invite. If you are somebody who is really well known to Tesla, or you are a super huge media outlet, we're talking like CNET or the BBC or anything like that, then yeah, you're probably going to get an invite. But if you're a smaller outlet, unless you're a Tesla owner, chances are you're not going to get in. And so we would go to a Tesla event if we had an invite. And sometimes people get +1s. We've been offered a couple of +1s in the past. In fact, we were offered a +1 to the Model Y event. And we said, yeah, we'd love to go. But it actually clashed with a talk I was giving in San Diego that I'd said yes to like 3 months previously. So I couldn't turn around at the last minute and say, I'm sorry, I'm not coming to this event in San Diego. I'm going to the Model Y launch. So that's why we don't cover Tesla events so much. Plus, of course, also the flights, you know, and flights to LA or to San Francisco are pretty expensive. So that's where we're at. That's why we cover the events we cover. I just wanted to give you an idea of the costs associated with this, because I think a lot of people don't understand. They think that you can just set up a camera in your living room and talk to a camera and make a bucket load of money on YouTube. And the reality is, no, we have taxes to pay. We have to pay bills like every other business. We are a registered business. We have to make sure that we comply with the law. You know, retirement for people and all of those other things have to be taken into consideration as well. So that's why we do what we do, and that's the way that we make these videos. I'm sorry this is longer than I thought it was. It's basically been a one-take soliloquy. I hope you watched it. I'll be back tomorrow with more content, but until then, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell, support us using Patreon, Ko-fi, or the Swag Store. Be nice to each other if you are enjoying your Labour Day off. I hope you have a good one. And as always, keep evolving.